We can start. We're going to have 55 minutes of cultural heritage towards a green and social and digital Europe. I'm glad to see people that are here and not in the AI consultation that is in the main auditorium. But we're going to have a nice discussion about this triple transition, because these days have been about the digital transformation, of course, but then we have to think about the social and environmental impact that this transition has. And we have three wonderful speakers today. We have Evangelia Paschalidou from International Hellenic University, Aleksandra Strzelichowska from Europeana Foundation, and then Susanna Ånäs from AvoinGLAM and Open Knowledge Finland. What we are going to do is that we are going to have a small presentation of each of the speakers, and then we really wanted to have an open discussion about these topics. So we're going to have the speakers interact with each other with a few prepared questions already, and then we are going to turn over to you. If you have any questions, really feel free, because the room is small and we are in a familiar environment, so let's all talk together. These are the usual points of order for the conference participants. And here, if you want to tweet or use Blue Sky to talk about the conference. And I think I can already call on stage Evangelia, who is going to talk about how can we green digital heritage.
Thank you, Marco. Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here and finally sharing the results of our environmental sustainability practice task force and the survey. I will just give you a quick glimpse on the results, the report and the survey, mostly discussing the background, and then I'm really looking forward to the discussion we will all have together. So my name is Eva Paschalidou. I'm a PhD researcher from Thessaloniki, Greece. Sorry. Okay, yes. So yes, cultural heritage institutions aim to safeguard humanity's legacy. However, for the preservation of digital cultural heritage, they are heavily relying on the use of ICT, information and communication technology, that contributes significantly to environmental degradation and the climate crisis that puts cultural heritage at risk in the first place. So we are having this kind of, the creation of this kind of negative feedback loop, as you can see on the side on the graph. And this is what we will try to make tangible here, the materiality of digitalization and the embodied costs of ICT that remain largely invisible. The past few years, we have all been experiencing extreme climate events becoming more often. Apart from cultural or natural heritage sites, climate events of extreme intensity are affecting not only cultural heritage buildings or artifacts, but cultural practices and traditions of the displaced communities too. Therefore, a regenerative approach going beyond sustainability to actively restore ecosystems and communities is now more essential than ever before. When discussing the environmental impacts of ICT, like data centers and hardware, the first issue coming in mind usually regards the energy consumption, as you can see in the use phase in the middle of the graph, the energy consumption or the water sources that such facilities require. However, most importantly, the environmental impact extends beyond operation, in the production phase, to the embodied environmental footprint, the one that occurs in the production phase of the hardware, and disproportionately affects and burdens the communities around the mining areas. And those communities are also the ones to bear the cost, the environmental cost of e-waste, in the end-of-life phase that ends up illegally shipped to Global South, where they are dismantled informally under very hazardous conditions. And this unsustainable on all levels life cycle of hardware is only aggravated by the digital practices if we consider that a great portion of the data stored are never actually used. And these are called dark data and are estimated to make up to 54% of the total stored data by organizations. So we are discussing that more than half of our data that are stored, I mean organizations in general, not just cultural heritage organizations, are actually using up preservation resources for no value, for bringing no value back. So in this context, the Environmental Sustainability Practice Task Force was formed within the climate action community with the aim to systematically understand the environmental sustainability of digital preservation practices and to develop actionable recommendations. So we ran a European survey among cultural heritage institutions. We analyzed the collected data with a regenerative approach, and today we are presenting the report with practical recommendations towards a regenerative digital transformation. Though in order CHIs, cultural heritage institutions, to design sustainable digital processes, they need to be aware of these data life cycle environmental impacts that we mentioned just before and to measure them. And this is what we found out. This is just a quick overview that 78% of organizations do acknowledge the importance of environmental sustainability, but only 42% have formalized this commitment through official policies or in their strategies, and just 14% actively monitor the carbon footprint of their digital services. So the findings further reveal a diversity of approaches in content selection criteria, resulting to inconsistent preservation frameworks that further contribute to inefficient resource use and accumulation of dark data. Also, when asked whether a smaller format equivalence could deliver the same preservation quality, like in the JPEG example to JPEG XL, 46% of cultural heritage institutions were unsure of it, signaling a significant knowledge gap, but at the same time, a great opportunity for knowledge uptake. And finally, 57.14% of surveyed CHIs lack policies governing the life cycle of digital assets, meaning when to retire digital assets to deaccession. And then focusing on the infrastructure used in digital preservation, the reality check confirms that the recycling is the most popular practice, followed by repair. And then with a very, very small amount, only 3% applying sustainability procurement. That, on the contrary, is the most impactful practice according to EU's waste hierarchy directive, waste management hierarchy, which is prioritizing, as we see, prevention. So ideally, it should have been the other way around of the pyramid. However, good news are that with recent EU regulation, though, like the Right to Repair directive that was passed in 2024, and it should be transposed by member states until 2026, supports a step further to the repair approach, at least, mandating spare parts availability and repair services. France has already pioneered this already back in January 2021 as the first country to implement a mandatory repairability index for electronic devices, as we see on the side. In this session, though, I would like to highlight the twofold role communities can play in both digital preservation practices and the use of infrastructure hardware itself. So communities may provide a creative solution partner to CHIs both regarding the digital assets lifecycle management, when, for example, adopting a community-based decision-making, but also regarding the decentralized storage and preservation with distributed infrastructure, among others, like the example of Boeing, that is the Berkeley Open Infrastructure for Network Computing. Finally, of course, I invite you to dive deeper into the full report recommendations, but I would like just to stress as a concluding remark here that this change begins with each one of us on an individual level, who will inspire others in our organizations, and all together we can create like a monumental shift in awareness, and finally introducing change to all these three different levels. Oh, yes, sorry, this is a scan to the full report. If you want to download a temporary version, the formal full report will be uploaded on Europeana soon. I will just leave it there, and thank you all so much for the attention, and yeah, passing on to Aleksandra.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of seconds so that if you want to scan the QR codes. This work was possible because we had our old task force in the European Network Association, and it was under the auspices of the European Climate Action Community. We're a very involved group. I see some faces of our steering group inside the room. So if you want to join us, please let us know, because we know that Europeana right now is experiencing some technical issues on joining communities. But anyways, I can leave the floor to Aleksandra.
Thank you so much, Marco. So my name is Aleksandra Strzelichowska. I work for Europeana. I guess if you know me from somewhere, it would be mostly from work around audience engagement, storytelling, gift making, and this kind of things. But today I am wearing a little bit of a different hat. So I am here on behalf of the project DIGICHer, which is about digitization of cultural heritage of minority communities for equity and renewed engagement. I work on a communication work package on this project, but we are a big and diverse consortium with quite a big coverage across Europe, bringing together cultural heritage professionals, academia, and technology and innovation related partners. So why did we start with this project? So I guess everyone in the room heard of the movie Frozen. And this is a very popular Disney movie that all the kids are singing song from. Everyone had merch from it. People organized themed party around it. The movie is happening in the Arctic, but during the production and after it was released, the Sami community, of which elements of the culture are featured in the film, was never acknowledged. They were not the part of the production of the movie. They were not consulted, and they didn't get credit. While from a legal point of view, there was nothing wrong. So this brought this idea of this project, which is funded by Horizon Europe, to explore what would be the way that looks beyond the licensing, but also around the ethics, around kind of taking care about the communities, and how to make it also ethically correct. So the idea of this project is to build a framework for digitization of minority cultural heritage, but of course, the framework cannot be built out of nowhere if we want people to use it and to work with it. So our idea of this project is to work with minority communities. The case studies for the specific projects are 3 of them. So it's a Sami community. There is a Ladin community. For those who don't know it, it's based in the Dolomites in Italy. And Jewish community, which all of them have a little bit of different characteristics in terms on how they are spread geographically, like Sami communities across a number of countries, Ladin communities like in one valley, very concentrated, and Jewish is a big cultural heritage across Europe, but also very diverse, very scattered, and also often the community is not where the heritage is because of Holocaust and historical reasons. So there is a number of background research developed during the project. I'm not bringing it on here. I will just share examples that are relevant for this discussion. So there was a landscape of digitization of cultural heritage created by my colleagues from University of Vienna. And from the insights from literature and survey that they collected, they discovered that findings that are relevant for minority communities is 3D digitization, because often minority heritage is not based on text, like the majority communities' heritage. These are the objects of art, daily tools. So there is a big chance, but we also know that this is costly, which will, I guess, come back in the discussion about sustainability. Strategies for long-term maintenance and sustainability of results are needed. So this is something that Eva already mentioned shortly at the beginning. So choices have to be made, decisions have to be made in order to maintain and preserve the heritage. And there is also a question of communication strategies. So how to make project activities, things done around the minority content visible by the majority community, but also not only in the way of like preservation we have to save, but just to participate in the cultural heritage landscape in a bigger presence. So about the development of the framework. So we want to involve actively the communities in the creation of this framework. This is essential because we want the framework to work for them, but also for other communities with similar characteristics. We are doing pilot digitization tests in collaborations with the 3 minorities I already mentioned. So this is a practical way to actually test the approach, talk to people, see what is important for them, find the common points for the 3 of them, but also the ones that are very different, because every minoritized community probably will have a little bit of a different experience. This is something that also has to be accounted for when developing a framework. And the design tools that we are using have 3 purposes. So explanatory, to understand their situation; generative, to help develop something based on the community's activities; and evaluative, to evaluate the final results. So what we want to achieve during the project is to capture the sentiment of the community during the digitalization, because some communities don't have major experience. They were only always invited in the mainstream archive. No one was talking to them individually. We want to know what their needs, desires, fears, and vision, as well as hopes, are related to its cultural heritage and possible digitization. And finally, more practical, understand what resources and skills community is able to put in place to support and develop pilot projects. So from what already happened, so in February we had 2 workshops. So first of them was with Ladin community in Fassa Valley, which used exploratory design tools. So the workshop was attended by a group of community representatives, and we used empathy map, personas, and benchmarking to find out how the community would like to work with their own heritage. Another workshop that we run was in Inari, in the Sami parliament. And it was again representative, selected from those who have connection with the Sami communities, culture and cultural heritage. So there we use the idea map, evaluation map. And this is the example of how this is happening in practice. So there are people working together, putting ideas on the post-it notes, and based on that, we kind of put together a set of the conclusions. So here's the idea, and this is what we heard. So the needs are to be respected, to be able to collaborate across national borders, which in the case of those communities, there are 3 or 4 different countries within the European Union or not, so legislation is very different. The first is cultural simplifications and distortion. So again, being used in the movies, in pop culture, without being consulted and really acknowledging the culture. And also loss of respect for traditional knowledge folders. So like taking out of the context. The actions that are possible according to the community is to be able to co-create metadata, which means we have the digital object, we decide how it's being described. So then our message is being put across. Similarly, participating in choosing content and guiding digitization. So being involved in the selection, not giving away everything that is there for like kind of mechanical, technical process, but really making a choice. And making sure that the content that is digitized is accessible to the community in a way that is easy and good for them. And the possibilities they have seen is that the heritage and knowledge are reaching future generations, that everyone can access, which is quite important because some of the communities, minorities live more traditional lifestyle. So for example, they cannot be in the city or in a library or at the university, but digital culture provides an opportunity to share the culture more widely. And then new community projects and more participation, bringing people together. So from this first stage, when we had like those consultations and workshops, we will be running in the coming months pilot activities. So really like digitizing the objects that have been selected, seeing how it goes, trying to create metadata, and based on both the landscape kind of background research, the first workshops, and those pilot practical digitization activities, we will come up with this framework that hopefully will be useful for policymakers, cultural heritage institutions, and minorities across Europe. So that was it. If you want to see the project website, here is the QR code, and yeah, follow us and get in touch.
Thank you, Aleksandra. It was really interesting, and I will have a lot of questions about what you're talking about. And really, when you projected nothing about us without us, I think it's at the core of what you're talking about. But now we are going to leave the floor to Susanna.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Marco. I'm managing this first. Hi, my name is Susanna Ånäs. I come from Finland and from AvoinGLAM. AvoinGLAM is a working group at Open Knowledge Finland, which is an NGO. And the AvoinGLAM working group works specifically and to advocate for open access to cultural heritage. And everybody knows AvoinGLAM, so this is like a tweak of open. The Avoin means open in Finnish. And so what we have been doing over the years, we've been doing a lot of co-creation activities since the Open Knowledge Festival in 2012 under different leadership, and I jumped on around 2020, and we did, well, there was Corona. We had events, these hackathons, cultural hacks, up until 2018, and the next one was supposed to be on the 13th of March 2020, and so we needed to divert. So we came up with this global GLAM hackathon called Hack for Open GLAM, and we did 2 editions of those, one in 2020 and one in 2021. And the work led to also then us jumping on the AI bandwagon, so to speak, last year with AI sauna. So AI, you know what that is, and sauna, you know what that is. And then the event itself was about like bringing together people from different directions to discuss what AI means for cultural heritage. And so that was quite a nice event with representatives from many of the openness organizations, and what we now want to do is to create a new event around with the same idea of bringing people from different directions. So here's the context. Oulu will be the cultural capital for next year. Oulu is halfway to, I don't know, no, it's not the North Sea, it's the Arctic Sea. I'm not sure. But anyway, not quite in Lapland, but halfway through the north from Helsinki to the north point of Finland. And the cultural program, the main theme is the cultural climate change. And so here is where the name comes from. And actually, as you can see, there's already a connection to what Aleksandra was just talking about. And so we continue our tradition regarding saunas. So the event will be called Oulu Löyly. And it's going to be, well, hackathons are a little bit difficult to understand in the cultural context. So this time we call it, well, last time we called it a co-creation event. Now we want to call it a Think and Do Fest. Maybe, I don't know. If it resonates with you, just let me know. We can still tweak. So, oops, what does that mean? Oh yes, now I know. So, all together now. Oulu Löyly. Good. Okay. So if you this is the phonetic something inscription of it, and if you want to read it more in English, you can try this. I don't know whether it works. Oulu Löyly. This was actually proposed to us by our Scottish member, so I don't know whether that resonates with everyone. And as I mentioned, yes, I didn't mention. Well, AI sauna is about sauna, and löyly is the steam of the sauna. When you throw water on the stones, that is what evaporates. And then it's also in the Fenno-Ugric area, and in these Baltic, Finnic nations, cultures, a word for a spirit. So I think this is very suitable for minds coming together solving issues. And so what issues then? The idea on which this whole event is centered on is about community heritage. How do communities, different kinds of communities, language communities, marginalized communities, indigenous communities, both preserve and make their heritage accessible globally and part of the global open ecosystem. So in fact, this should be more like a octopus, let's say. There's the center is the community heritage, and these are the tentacles. These like what are all the things that are related to this issue. So in community heritage, I have some notes somewhere. Let me see if I can't remember anymore. Anyways, all the things that I was supposed to say about that. But let's start from there. Like the federated archives, how to create resilient distributed infrastructure. This has a lot to do with the data spaces. For example, we work a lot with Wikimedia and Wikidata, and there the Wikibases are a possible such node in such a federated landscape. And then rights and sovereignty in the open ecosystem. So how do those communities, indigenous people, what kind of rights do they have over their materials and their culture, and how can they manage that? How can they protect that or open mindfully? And heritage at risk. There are like several risks. What kind of risks are there? How can the open ecosystem of collective care help meet the challenges posed by disasters, war, neglect, oppression, digital obsolescence, a lack of capacity of resources, and other innumerable causes of loss and oblivion? And then local, regional, and global lenses. So we was like located in a specific geographic location, which bears a specific meaning as well. It's in the north of Finland, and it's part of the, well, always not really part of the Sápmi, but it is, well, we are positioning these topics in that context as well. And then as well as the like Arctic or circumpolar area, so there will be specific questions related to that. And then again, like we have the Nordic context, we have this European context, but we also, like through the indigenous issues, we have the global context of all kinds of different communities, or like any other topic that is global, how we manage that. And then finally, what are the limits of digital communication? So even if we do everything digitally, I've got some examples here, like intangible cultural heritage. We can of course list that, but then again, like it's very much not in the digital realm. And multimodality, like different types of experiences, natural heritage, the whole idea of different epistemologies, and traditional knowledge. And who are we addressing? Well, of course, the most hopeful, collaborative, and courageous thinkers and doers. It's our Think and Do Fest, so I hope you identify yourselves in that. And so it also, we want to bring in both like policymakers, creators, developers, activists, cultural heritage professionals. And if someone was not mentioned, please raise your hand and we'll invite you too. And so here are some ways in which to get in touch. The newsletter link is a form. I wasn't able to create a proper link today, so it might change. But this you can find the web page through those links. I hope you can see them. And then, like, all the information to everything else will be added there. So please welcome. It's in June next year.
Thank you, Susanna, and thank you for teaching us how to say Oulu Loulu. Can I ask you to come here and so we can have a chat? I know that we have a couple of questions already from 2 questions, great. Yes, also water. Wait, let's bring the glasses here. Susanna, just a question for you. Do we have an exact date? Because you talked about June, and I don't know if you have an exact date. This should be
Okay, I'm taking a risk here because there are some confirmations that we need to get, but I think it's a good occasion anyway to disclose that. So it would be 8 to 10 June, Monday to Wednesday. And during the weekend before, there will be Wikimedia meetups for Nordic and thematic groups, specifically, the Sami Wikipedias, as well as then Finno-Ugric Wikipedias, such meetups over the weekend. So, and then the place, maybe later.
Let's not reveal too much. Let's keep. Okay, but listen. Yes, this was mine. It took me like 10 minutes to do it. Anyway, I think that's we are touching on a multiple of topics, and of course the digital, environmental, and social transition is at the center. This triangle that we are talking about. Eva really talked about the environmental part. I think, Aleksandra, you talked more on the social part. And you, Susanna, you were in between. So I would like you to see on the other part of the wall and tell me more about the social, environmental, and explain a little bit more for you, Susanna, this nexus of these two things that are all joined in the digital realm. So Eva, I give you the floor.
Okay, thank you. So as I tried kind of really quickly to paint this red thread across all our three different, let's say, approaches to the triple transition. From let's say the environmental task force, let's say, perspective that I'm representing here, the digital and the social are really tied together to the environmental impact of it, and they are kind of interrelated and exchanging back and forth, if I can say so, impacts, in a sense that we cannot really see the social really disconnected from the environmental, and we cannot really see the digital disconnected from the social and the environmental. These were like a couple of really quick examples of how we can more tangibly understand the social aspects of our digital practices, along, of course, with the environmental costs. However, we are living in such a complicated world where whenever we are taking a decision in our own, let's say, siloed practice or understanding or formation, we are we cannot escape but somehow touch to the other realms as well. So yeah, I'm sorry, that's a complicated answer, but I'm just trying to highlight the complicacy here of yeah, how we really need to wear interdisciplinary lenses whenever we are thinking of our own, let's say, personal decisions and practices. Yeah, sorry. Taking too much time.
So in Eva's deck, I saw this title, Community-Powered Archives. So basically talking about the project and what we are trying to do with communities is empowering the communities to run the archives in the way that they would like to. What is good for the environment in that, instead of, for example, the approach that could have been taken around 20 years ago, so scanning everything that there is of minority archives to make up for them by the majority community, we actually give them voice, we ask, we give them the choice to make, build capacity. So in this way, it's good from the society point of view, it's good from the digitization, because the process of really scanning, making 3D models, come together with capacity building. But at the same time, because choices are being made, so not everything has to be digitized, not everything now, because as technology progresses, the stuff that is like from 10 years ago now is very small, very useless, while most of it, as Eva mentioned, was never used. So thinking more, what do we want it for, what kind of project, what activities, what educational materials can come out of it, make a selection, make a great metadata, and produce reuse cases, but also just fun stuff for the community itself and for also majority community. This would be my the middle of the Venn diagram between all those things.
Okay, thank you for the question. I really like to answer this. Because we work a lot with Wikimedia, it is like a bottom-up environment. And also in this Europeana context, which is a very institutional environment. So I think the question is that from both of these perspectives, these kinds of community heritage archives are sort of outside the scope of their, not completely, but not properly served by institutions, nor these, let's say, crowdsourced environments because of their policies and practices. And so what we must find out is the constellation of, social and digital. How do we harness the social or the digital, the social for the digital or the digital for the social? And then again, I think then the environmental is something that is always a little bit in the background, but I think we want to foreground that as well, because through the location and through thinking about those forms of knowledge and heritage that are part of, let's say, indigenous culture specifically, but any other as well. We have to hurry.
Yes, because I've been told that we have not a lot of minutes to continue. So I will get to the questions. Are there any questions in the room? Because I have specifically one here. Yes, I will bring you the microphone. In the meantime, I will answer to the question, where can I download the regenerative digital transformation reports? I think I will put, again, the QR code on the slide so that you can download it. And then we're going to get to the other question online.
Hi, thanks. I was just wondering how local place, actual... I think we always think of the internet as being global and inviting the whole world, but maybe we don't need it in every case. I mean, you're always... all three of you have been talking about communities and very specific local places. So maybe could that be a way to be more environmentally friendly, to not have this assumption that it needs to be global and everyone in the world needs to have access?
Can I just take it quickly? Actually, you tapped in one of the main, let's say, characteristics of environmentalism, that it's locality. So in this urge after globalization that everything has to be constantly available in all lengths and of the world, and from any part of the world I can have access to any type of cultural heritage or even objects to the exact opposite part of it. That's intriguing. That's unsustainability in its very own roots, and we have to maybe experience it by defining our needs on a local level in the first place. So this is how we can experience, let's say, a more environmental friendly way of being and living by embedding locality in our ways of thinking. And that, I think, links back to communities, to digitalization, environmental issues, of course, and social issues nowadays. So, I mean, that's my approach to it.
Yeah, what I think it's important here, because when you digitize, you always have like multiple versions and copies and sizes of everything. So of course, for preservation, you can keep them, but you can always decide that one version of something will be published on like a big service aggregator, and the rest will be preserved, but maybe used for a more local uses that for the local communities can be very useful, but not necessarily take like, server space in the cloud for everyone else. So I think, again, it's like the decision making and a mind shift from like everything that exists has to be online, always accessible at every point, to more like what is needed for the closest community, what is needed to prevent this type of risk, what is needed to increase creativity, and choose the location accordingly between very local and then global.
I actually do have a couple of examples in mind. One of them is language revitalization. It's not really something that needs to happen globally. It is very, very local, and digital means are very useful in that. Well, I'm not going to go into what specifically they could be, but like there is like Inarisami Wikipedia grown. Well, that's a global environment, but that wouldn't have to be a Wikipedia anyway. Some kind of a local publishing. And then an interesting experience from one of the projects we did in Hack for AvoinGLAM was tagging exercise with Sami content, and it didn't go as I planned, because my idea was to demonstrate how this open tagging experience can enrich the process, but instead it brought in ignorant comments from outsiders, which was completely the opposite of what we wanted to say with it. So I think, yes, we have to focus on how the local is served when the topic is and the context is local.
May I give you the microphone? We do not have much time, so the answers will be very quick.
Thanks. Just a comment, especially to the first presentation. I'm very happy to hear about the Europeans Working Group, and it's looking forward for the report. Digitalization and AI has a huge environmental impact, and also our sector has a role there, and that's why I think we should try to calculate our emissions. But the results might be also surprising. In Finland, we have a long-term preservation solution with 5 terabits of information, and they calculated their CO2 footprint, and the result was that it was like 21 tons, which is like 2 or 3 average persons' annual CO2 emissions. And that is because the company responsible for the service are also running the servers, so they can count the emissions. And of course, if the electricity is green, so there will be not that much emissions. And one surprising result was also that most of that emissions, they come from hardware and the moving the hardware, not from the usage. And of course, the preservation has very low level of transactions, because it's preservation and not like daily traffic. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the comments. I happened to do my master thesis and research for Finland case study. So we did work very closely with Kalensi supercomputer, where a big portion of the Finnish Heritage Agency data are long-term preserved there. And this was indeed one of the discussions that we have, that the energy, maybe the resources, meaning the energy demands and the water resources, going into the use phase, as we saw with the life cycle approach, are the list of the concerns when we are adopting this life cycle approach to digital preservation practices, since the majority of the impacts, the environmental and the social costs, are mostly located in the production phase of the hardware, how scarce minerals are extracted, and let alone how e-waste, that as we saw, a tiny portion is formally and legally recycled. So I would say I could go back to the issue of sufficiency, eco-sufficiency, of course, doing long preservation, but doing everything on the level that is needed. As we heard, not anything cannot be digitized, and not everything can be preserved in the highest resolution. We constantly should be thinking that we are living in a finite planet with finite resources, and the majority of the hardware scarce minerals are falling in exact under this category of scarce minerals that cannot be restored once replenished. So, of course, unless we are starting looking for scarce minerals outside Earth. So, yes, that's constantly, let's say, the concept guiding at least my approach. Thank you.
Great. So I think this is the end of our session. I just wanted to put a big thank you to the speakers. Thank you very much. Let's applaud them because the presentations were really, really interesting. Thank you very much. And this is a QR code. If you are not yet part of the Europeana Network Association, please join the network, and please also join the different communities. Among them, there is the climate action community. Thank you, Mara, very much again, and I will see you in the rest of the conference.